Texas Space Alliance right now is in a state of change, which is really exciting. Colonel Bob Lancaster just came back from tour duty in Afghanistan and the Middle East, is taking over as president. I'm handing that off to go work on the Earthlight Institute. He's doing a great job of it. He looks the part. He's got that whole military thing going. So I'm really excited about that. The organization is teaming with a professional organization out of Washington that has opened an office in Austin, and we're looking at putting together a 5-point legislative plan to introduce into the Texas legislature in the next session. As you know, Texas has one of the smarter forms of government in the United States. Thank God we have something good down there, right? I'm kidding. No, in Texas we have one of the better forms of government in that the legislature is only allowed to meet 2 years out of every 4. And then they send them home. Now there's an idea, don't you think? So the next legislative session is coming up next year, and we're going to introduce different sorts of things like the Texas Space Authority to actually put in one place a funded group of professionals that are working to enhance and create a strong Texas commercial sector, commercial space sector. We're going to be looking at enabling different sorts of laws and zoning authorities, et cetera, that can lure different space companies to Texas, make the environment more friendly for companies operating there in the sense of taxes, and zoning and things like that. We're looking at STEM education and tie-ins with what's going to happen in commercial space. And then, of course, there's the spaceports. And we're looking at what we can do. We've been pushing spaceports for a while. What we can do to get more companies to come and fly out of Texas. We believe Texas has the heritage, the mentality, the legacy, and we certainly got the real estate. So come on, and we're on the same page as SpaceX when it comes to flying out of Texas. We believe that Texas represents prime real estate for interplanetary travel. I have said to Elon that he needs to fly from Texas to Mars. And I think that they have been doing some very careful work down in South Texas to begin putting the pieces of how to make that happen occur. There are other companies. We already have Blue Origin flying out of Texas. Armadillo has to go to New Mexico to fly. We would love for them to stay in Texas and fly. And there are other companies in other locations in the United States that have indicated they would love to perhaps be in Texas. So what we have to do is make sure that the environment we have is inviting for them and nurturing for the kind of work they want to do. Right now I have real problems with the Texas congressional delegation and the fact that they simply do not get it when it comes to commercial space. In fact, the biggest enemy of commercial space in Texas is the Texas congressional delegation. Not the local leadership. They get it. The people in Houston get it. The people in Van Horn, where Blue Origin is, get it. There are people in Brownsville where SpaceX is looking. They get it. But the people representing Texas in Congress are clueless. They are completely and utterly on the wrong side of history.
And that brings me back to how can we get the regular person, which I think they qualify as, to understand? How can we get them to get it? Even if we don't get everyone else to get it, how can we get them to get it?
Well, one of the ways they're going to get it is when they wake up one day and their rockets launching from Texas, in spite of the fact that they haven't been paying attention. The way to get a congressperson's attention is for the constituencies to tell that congressperson to do something different or to give them a lot of money. What's happening right now with the Texas delegation is that for years they've been getting a lot of money from people who have an interest in seeing one federal space center get large contracts. And what we have to do is change the conversation, change the activities of what's going on in Texas so that they're being influenced by people outside of that one government facility who are engaged in activities that create jobs, that bring cash flow into the state, that advance education and the state's image, at the same time that the people in that federal facility are also beginning to change their wants and desires as expressed to those Congress people via contractors and where those contractors put their money. In other words, it needs to become the self-interest of a place like Johnson Space Center to support commercial space rather than feeling threatened by it. Right now, Johnson Space Center is slowly waking up to the fact that this new commercial space agenda allows them to actually do more. Keep in mind, Johnson Space Center is the center that handles human beings in space. That's their job. If we enable commercial space activities to grow, and especially if we can get them to grow in Texas, they get to do more of their job because it gets cheaper to go to and from space. So it's very important that Kay Bailey Hutchison and Ralph Hall and the other representatives of Texas in Congress do a U-turn and turn away from trying to support what I call socialist space programs like the Senate launch system that do nothing but slow the death of the wrong way of opening space, and get on the right side of history and support those sorts of activities that will accelerate the future of what we're going to be doing in space, i.e. supporting commercial space. It's absurd. And to make it worse, these people are allegedly conservative Republicans. They will sit in a hearing attacking quote-unquote socialized medicine in Congress, get up, go out the door, go down the hall, walk into a hearing, and support socialized space. What's up with that? I don't know. That needs to change. And we just have to have a lot of people tell them. So if you're watching this, if this ever gets broadcast, call up, if you're from Texas, call up your Congress people and say, change. You need to change what you're doing. You need to support commercial space. I need a statement out of you, Kay Bailey Hutchison, saying, I support commercial space. Why not take the billions of dollars they're pouring into what we call the Senate launch system and pour that into commercial activities? And if you need to look out for Texas, then try and make sure some of that money gets spent in Texas. At least it's being spent on something good rather than something that's just a long-term dead end. You know, a while back I saw a 60 Minutes episode on the poor people in Florida that had been kind of left in the lurch by what has happened down there. And I really feel for those people. Anytime you have an industrial shift, people are going to get hurt. You know, when we went from horses to cars, there were people who took care of horses and raised horses who were out of a job. But this situation we knew was coming. Okay, this was announced by President George Bush many, many years ago. It was coming. We knew it was coming. And instead of getting ahead of the curve and saying, we could do more stuff off planet if we embrace commercial to orbit, the senators and the representatives from Florida and Texas and Alabama fought to keep the money going, the pork money going, to their old donors, rather than looking out for the people themselves by saying, you know what, we may have 100 jobs with old space down here, but if we get involved with commercial space, we could have 10,000. Let's start working on that now.